Hey, my name is Augustus Foster. Welcome to Man Talk Monday podcast. Today, Odd Man Out series. This episode, we're going to talk about the ideal stepfather. We're going to talk about the perfect man. Where the last episode, I talked about the Brady Bunch theory. Everyone wants the Brady Bunch blended family. It just works well, and we get through our issues, and it's great. Now, I'm going to talk about the man that women literally prayed for, not just black women, Spanish sisters, Asians, white, single mothers of all races and backgrounds prayed for him because it was Ciaras Prayer, and it's Russel Wilson. And today I'm not going to go too deep on Ciara's life. This isn't about me tearing down anything Ciara did. The only thing I will say is part of Ciara's prayer for other women was rooted in a poor decision she made. Because that's the crux of this episode. I believe we need to get back to a place where we have uncomfortable conversations with people that almost make them want to fight you. Because the dog that's hit don't want to holler, they want to bite. Now, if you don't know who Ciara is, Ciara, award-winning singer, dancer, she's acted in a couple of things, extremely popular, like hell of a dancer, dope performer, choreographer, all that. Russell Wilson, multi-sport athlete. He was like 4-tool baseball player, nice pitcher. Think he transferred his senior season to like up his NFL and his MLB stock. He has to this day one of the greatest NFL draft night photos you've ever seen. Like, it will live in infamy for his ex-wife, but it's one of the best draft night photos ever. Raised primarily by his mother because his father died when I believe he was like a freshman or sophomore in high school. Raised primarily by, from that point on, from like his mother, his grandparents, and his uncles. But just nice dude. And these two got together. And I remember the period of when they got together, the term Ciaras Prayer started trending. Now, before I go any further, I want you, if you're listening to this, to go back, type in Ciaras Prayer on any social media platform, Google it. Hell, it might have a wiki page, because I want this to be a real conversation on what people want and why they want it. The Odd Man Out series was me for 2.5 years talking to a handful of men and chronicling their lives and their journeys, their ups and their downs, the hell they've been through, the problems they went through, burying children, marriage, divorce, all as stepfathers. I had Zooms with some of these men and they cried their eyes out. Had texts with these dudes to where I had to call them to do like a check and like, hey man, I just want to make sure that you're good, because life be lifing and everything is not perfect. The previous episode, I talked about the theory, like the Brady Bunch theory, step by step, how people look at this on TV and they go, I can do that. And there are a lot of men who went in thinking, and again, I will discourage no one. I won't discourage anyone. But I'm also a realist in telling people it is far more uphill battles than what you get on TV. And I will tell people now, I'm going to give these details and have this discussion, but at the end, I want to speak to men, because this series chronicles and discusses men and their experiences. And regardless of that being Ciara's prayer, quote unquote, it has zero to do with Ciara and everything to do. Let me correct that. Ciara's prayer had zero to do with Ciara and zero to do with Russell Wilson, and everything to do with what people perceive Russell Wilson to be. So I want you to go back, Google Ciara's prayer. Google it. Go research the comments. I always tell people the things that you see on social media isn't the end all be all, but it does provide some level of representation around conversations and discourse amongst people. The conversations in the beauty shop, the barber shop, the coffee shop, all the shops, clearly, the auto body shop, but even, hanging out at the water coolers, they used to say at work. These are conversations that are now carried over from real life onto social media, because people want to get other people's thoughts from around the world and different backgrounds. And I want you to go back and read Ciara's prayer, read the thoughts, read the conversations. I remember that picture that went viral of them at church and him laying prostrate. I thought it was amazing. I'm somebody who was raised by a real dope stepfather. I don't even call him my stepfather, he's just pops. So I know, like, amazing man. My birth dad was raised by the man who, until we got a certain age, we really recognized as our grandfather. We got to a certain age, was like, hell, he did have a different last name from us, but solid man, stand up dude. So this is not me as a stepfather. This is not me knocking Russell Wilson. This is me being upset at what I know was the root of it. So here's your overview. There's Ciara, there's Russell Wilson. Ciara goes on to be, I believe, baby mama number 3 or 4 to the rapper Future. If you want context for Future and how he's as a parent, I don't know. But from a standpoint of just as a man and dating and dealings with him, there's a young lady, I believe, named Tyler. A couple of weeks or like a month ago, she's at some award show, and there were pictures of her laughing and joking with Future. Women were uncomfortable. Women were in the comments literally saying, "Run away." So, I mean, repre- his his people's thoughts of him, specifically women's understanding of him and their thoughts and their feelings about him. Yeah, it's there. They want him to stay away from this young girl who they believe is on the come up and successful, and they're like, stay away from him. So clearly, they have an idea. Now, this isn't anything to his parenting, but this has been people's general concept of him as a man in his dealings, that he's like philanderer or whatever. Regardless, this is who Ciara has a child with. And she goes out and she dates, she meets Russell Wilson, and it's love affair, there he adopts baby Future, and who's the son, and they go on, and everything looks happy, it looks great. I don't know these people at home, but everything just looks awesome. Like, she stays pregnant, why, hey, if he like it, I love it. But it's been an amazing ride to see them, and they're at all the events, and here's it's black love and everybody's so happy, and there's a particular demographic. There are women who are extremely happy to see Ciara succeed, and the reason they're happy to see her is because everything that Russell Wilson has done has been dope. Like, he bought her masters so she could have them. He adopted Future, gave him the last name. He's taking him on college trips. Like, he's loving her in public. They're doing the media. He's doing everything right. And I remember the Ciara's Prayer. And again, I think about it because I recognize the reason of really what Ciara's Prayer was. And again, I say this: when women referenced Ciara's Prayer, it had zero to do with Ciara, has zero to do with Russell Wilson, and everything to do with people's perception or interpretation of who Russell Wilson is. So we live in a society where parasocial relationships are big. They're major. Parasocial relationships are a thing. People get so enveloped into these folks' lives. It's almost like a symbiotic like relationship to where they feel one with them on some Venom type stuff. But you had women who they had experienced what Ciara had experienced. They may have had a child with someone who, in hindsight, they were like, bit dicey. Maybe shouldn't have did that. So now they're in this position where they have this child. And, I'm again raised by awesome stepfather. I'll always applaud people, and specifically for women who are single mothers and the single mother demographic who are seeking a man. Like, they're the leading number of people in blended families. Go Google it. 22 to 24 was the most recent numbers. Pew Research. 1/3, 33% of all of your blended families, are a mother with a step parent. The overwhelming, if not close to 90% of those step parents are men. So let's hack that down. So let's say you're at 32%. Let's quick maths. Let's say 32% of all of your blended families are a single mother who is now remarried to a man who is now a stepfather. Little Future's in good hands. It's dope. It's great. But again, I say when people reference Ciaras Prayer, it wasn't even about Little Future. See, what happens is when in these parasocial relationships, you had a lot of people who felt they'd had a child with someone who was wrong and they were looking for a hero because that's what Ciaras Prayer was. And there are going to be people who this might be the offense episode. And I'll tell you to give you an understanding of how parasocial relationships work and how these tie in. I'm going to give you an example right after. There were women who saw themselves in Ciara. Now, they weren't award-winning dancers or singers, but what they were was somebody who had a child with someone who maybe they shouldn't have. Now, they weren't looking for Russel Wilson because they can't exactly get Russel Wilson, but what they were looking for was what they believed him to be. This is where, gentlemen, I need you to pay close attention. Russel Wilson, two-parent household, both his parents black, regardless of what people being like, he's Dominican. No, both his parents black. His dad just died when he was relatively young. And like I said, raised by his uncles and his grandparents, his mama. Russel Wilson, when you listen to what his teammates refer to him as, man, he didn't want to hang around. He didn't want to do this. And part of it, I think, is just because Russel Wilson's not that dude. He's, man, I'm not trying to be out. I'm not trying to do that. He's like a year-round athlete. He played baseball and football. Dude was always on the field somewhere. So he's never been nothing about him says, I'm trying to kick it, go drink with y'all, go smoke with y'all. That's not my vibe. That's not my thing. Nothing about him says that. And his teammates have rubbed him the wrong way. You hear a lot of people say he's a lame, he's a goofy, he's a weirdo, he's a cornball. Like, that's the thing. That was a discussion about him a couple months ago. Oh, he's corny. He's corny. And the crazy thing was, as men were having that conversation, women were defending it. Now, I'm not one to call him corny. I enjoy all the nerd stuff. I'm team that. I'm also out of the way. I just want to hang out, go visit kids, hang out with my youngest, be with my old lady, do look. That's it. I'd rather read than go out. Maybe a little corny. That's cool. That's my life. But now we go back to Ciaras Prayer. And I told you it had nothing to do with Ciara. It had nothing to do with Russell and everything to do with what people perceive. See, men called him corny, goofy, cornball, weirdo, loser, regardless of his money, regardless of his championships, everything he'd achieved. None of that mattered. That's what dudes labeled him. And the interesting thing was, women label him that too. You see, Ciaras Prayer wasn't for Russell Wilson. It wasn't. What women were saying, girl, Ciaras Prayer, it wasn't that. They wanted a dude who was the safe bet. So when I do this series, and part of the reason I did this episode was I had a conversation with a guy who that was his life for a period of time. He was the safe bet. That is what Ciaras Prayer was. Not just safe, corny. Not just safe. Somebody who women would think is corny. Somebody who men would think is corny. Somebody who most people would say he's lame. That's what the Ciaras Prayer was. Now, why do I say I want men to listen to this? Not saying there's anything wrong with the corny homies or the lame homies or whatever anybody is labeling you, but that's the issue. They're labeling you that. So the desire from these women wasn't for someone like Russell Wilson, who seems to be a real stand-up dude, who seems to be a solid guy. Has zero to do with that and everything to do with, yeah, it's time for me to get somebody corny. I don't want to deal with these street dudes no more. That literally where it was the meme, the cartoon meme joke of beat it, nerd, playing out in real life. Only this time the girl was successful. Like that. That is the root of Ciaras Prayer. I would love, please, by all means, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. And we see this play out in these conversations. And when I talked to the gentleman who I interviewed, we at the time we were wrapping up, and this is the great comparison. If you think I'm wrong about dudes who are lame or whatever in parasocial relationships and how people process them. Klay Thompson and Meg Thee Stallion. I don't know Klay Thompson from a can of paint. Don't. I've met his dad on a couple of occasions. I've had a couple of conversations with Trace, the brother who used to play baseball. That's it. I don't know Meg, but I don't know him from a can of paint. I don't know them to where I could call him. I don't know Meg Thee Stallion. Don't. But I do know what I saw. And I do know it wasn't just social media. It was conversations in real life from people who parasocial relationships. Klay Thompson was supposed to be different. Why was Klay Thompson supposed to be different? Why? Because Klay Thompson was supposed to be lame. He was supposed to be a dude who he's kind of out of the way. He's got his millions. He's not in any, you don't hear about him like other NBA players with 4-5 different baby mamas in the club, acting crazy. You don't hear that from him. His dad, Mike is from the Bahamas. He got a white mom. Like, you don't hear anything about Klay Thompson, but the perception of Klay Thompson was he's a lame. He's a cornball. He not really out here like these other dudes. So when he and Meg Thee Stallion did not work, it had zero to do with Meg Thee Stallion. It had zero to do with Klay Thompson and everything to do with what people's perception of Klay was. The perception was he's a lame, he's a cornball. So when the relationship doesn't work, all of the people go, why would he do this? I thought it would be so different. You thought it would be different because you perceived him as a lame. So for the women who, Ciaras Prayer, and again, this is for the dudes. Hear the idea of a Ciaras Prayer. That is not a compliment. I've seen interviews where women are there and sitting down with these men who, and I met him and he's just so great. I've never met anyone who treated him with this level of respect. Run, brother, run. And again, I'm somewhat reiterating the things that came from out of the interview. Part of what he told me in the interview was, man, I remember the first time she said I was the first guy to ever really treat her with respect. He said he felt so prideful in that moment. Like, man, yeah, like I give her love and, I give her respect, and she's never felt that. He said it made him feel good. When the divorce came, like, he recognized, like, oh, like that was maybe a mistake. Because he looked back in hindsight and said it was crazy. Like, 2 children, 2 different dads, but like he was the first man. It just was bad. Just was bad. And again, this is not a knock on Ciara. This ain't a knock on Max. This ain't a knock on any woman who's a single mother. This isn't even me talking to the moms. This is me talking to the dudes. Because in reality, you don't want to be Ciara's Prayer. You clip this. If you're a dude and you're listening to this, let me help you out. You do not want to be Ciara's Prayer. You don't want to be Ciara's Prayer. Because again, Ciara's Prayer had nothing to do with Ciara. Had nothing to do with Russel Wilson. And everything to do with the perception of who they thought that dude was. They thought that dude was lame and corny, and that was it. He's lame. He's corny. He'll come and save you. Listen, bro, that is not who you want to be. And again, this is no shot against Russell Wilson. I think he's an amazing dude. But I don't like the tag that's been put on him, not just by men, but by women. I don't like the tag that got put on Klay Thompson. Because the reason they were upset is because Klay was supposed to be different. And in these parasocial relationships, they somewhat tell the truth. It wasn't that Klay was supposed to be different. Klay was supposed to go along and ignore the red flags. That's what he was supposed to do. So when you hear a woman say, my Ciara's Prayer, my brother, you don't want to be Ciara's Prayer. That's what this really is about. Again, sitting about Ciara, sitting about any women, sitting about single mothers, because again, 1/3 of blended families are women who remarry. And the overwhelming percentage of that, over 85 to 90%, are the men. So there are tons of stepfathers out there. They're doing it. But this is for the dudes who, if you're in that position, like I asked every single man in the series, would you be a stepfather? If you're questioning, man, do I love this woman enough to blend this family and to make this work? Remember, you don't want to be there if you're Ciaras Prayer. If you're part of her Ciaras Prayer, brother, that's not for you, because she doesn't see you as, I can't speak definitively because I don't want to say that. Because again, I'm sure Ciara absolutely loves Russell Wilson. They look happy. I don't know them. What I do know is from the people who weren't her, the people who were speaking, people in my own family, people who I'm around, homegirls, coworkers who spoke on Ciara's Prayer. It had nothing to do with the quality or the character of Russell Wilson, and everything to do with the idea that he was safe, that he wasn't in the streets, that he wasn't Future. Like, that was the comparison. He's not Future. He don't look like he cheat. I know he won't hit. Like, these were the conversations. He didn't look like a philanderer or a domestic abuser. Hard stop. This is the standard that some people had set for themselves. So when I say, look, brother, you don't want to be part of Ciara's Prayer, I don't mean not to be a Russell Wilson, but what people perceive him to be. The loser, the lame, the one who can get ran over, the one who ignored the red flags. That's what I mean. Something to ponder, something to think about. Anyway, I appreciate y'all for listening. Back with another episode of I Man Out soon. Tap into the Substack. Y'all have a great morning or afternoon or evening. Regardless. Peace.